Welcome to The Explainer. Today, we're diving into one of the great love stories of the English Renaissance. It's a story all about passion, frustration, and this creative explosion that basically taught poets a whole new way to write about the heart.
Okay, so let's start with our hero, Sir Philip Sidney, born back in 1554. And this guy, he was the absolute poster child for the Elizabethan ideal. A celebrated courtier, a respected scholar, a valiant soldier, a sharp diplomat, his contemporaries really saw him as a paragon of virtues, like the perfect example of a Renaissance man.
So you'd think he had it all, right? A man just destined for greatness in every possible way. But his life was really defined by this one passionate, unfulfilled desire. And that desire, well, it would end up becoming his most enduring legacy. And this brings us right to the heart of the story, to the star and the star lover. See, to tell the story of heartbreak, Sidney created these two incredible characters, these two poetic personas, the star lover and, well, the star he could never, ever reach.
So in his really groundbreaking sonnet sequence, he casts himself as Astrophel, which literally means the star lover, and his muse, the object of all this affection, she's Stella, the star. But here's the thing, Stella wasn't just some fantasy. Nope, she was based on a real woman at court, a woman named Penelope Devereux.
Okay, so here's how it all went down. Sidney and Penelope, they actually met when they were young, and there were even some whispers of a potential marriage. But, for whatever reason, the whole thing just kind of fizzled out. But the real kicker, the real irony here, it wasn't until 1581, after Penelope had already married someone else, that Sidney's interest just exploded into this all-consuming obsession. It was that frustration, wanting the one thing he couldn't have, that unleashed this incredible wave of creativity.
So this is where things get really interesting. We're talking about a poet's inner conflict. Heartbroken, frustrated, Sidney just poured all of that turmoil into his poetry. But, and this is the key part, he completely refused to follow the old, polite rules of love poems. No way! Instead, he basically ripped up the rulebook to invent a new, messier, and much more honest way to write about what's going on inside the heart.
Okay, to really get what a big deal this was, you have to know what poetry was like before him. Love poetry back then was, well, it was often pretty formal and super predictable. It's kind of like writing these beautiful, elegant poems about the idea of love, but always from a safe, kind of impersonal distance, But Sidney's Astrophel, he just throws all of that out the window. Instead of writing about these lofty ideals, he just dives right inward. He creates this raw, truthful language of love that really maps out the messy inner world of a person who's completely torn between this intense passion on one side and their own sense of reason on the other. And that internal battle, that becomes the story.
And that brings us to what he created, a whole new language of love. This struggle, this tension between his personal agony and this artistic drive, it became the engine for his masterpiece. And we're not just talking about one poem here. We're talking about a monumental saga.
He poured this entire story into this absolutely massive sequence, 108 sonnets and 11 songs. And each one is like a little snapshot of his obsessive, wavering, passionate pursuit of Stella. So how did it work out for him? Well, for the lover himself, for Astrophel, the journey was just heartbreaking. He pours his entire soul onto the page. But in the end, he never wins Stella's love. It was, when you boil it down, this beautiful but ultimately futile and solitary quest. But, and here's the crucial point, while Astrophel, the lover, totally failed in his quest, Sidney, the artist, he triumphed. It was his personal tragedy that directly fueled this artistic revolution that would just echo for centuries. So what was the legacy of this lost love? Well, Sidney died tragically young, from a battle wound of all things, in 1586, and he never even published his own works. But when they were finally released after he died, their impact was, wow, immediate and totally lasting. This one collection, it's widely credited with completely rejuvenating the entire sonnet form in England. It just breathed new life, this incredible psychological depth, and a raw emotional honesty into a genre that, frankly, was getting a little stale.
And get this, Sidney's work didn't just exist in a vacuum. It became this absolutely crucial bridge for the next generation of writers. You can see his incredible influence right here. He's now considered the greatest Elizabethan sonneteer, second only to Shakespeare himself. In a lot of ways, you could say he set the stage for the bard.
So at the end of the day, what's the big takeaway? Sidney's heartache, it didn't just create 108 sonnets. It gave future poets, including Shakespeare, a completely new way to write about love. It gave every writer who came after him a new, more honest, emotional language. And I guess I'll just leave you with this thought. What could possibly be more powerful than turning your greatest failure into your most enduring legacy?